Hi guys, thank you and welcome to the third episode of ISPC's Tailboard Talks. I'm your co-host, Jerry Havens, with Mark Forster. And we've got a special edition this time.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. Good to see you again, Jerry. So we are actually live from the 2024 Trainers Conference in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah, it's been a big day. This is the first day of the Trainers Conference. We had a great night last night at the welcome reception. Thanks to Beer Meters for sponsoring that. That was a fun time.
That was a good time. I saw a lot of people having good conversation and enjoying the food and the drinks and the company so yeah, good time.
Good time on that one. And also another good time was all of today, because I know we had Mr. Mike Starner, who's here with us, was our keynote speaker. Jeremy G just spoke. Derek Grimes spoke earlier. Guys, we've got a lot of good conversation we need to talk about, a lot of things that we are really excited to share with you.
Yeah.
Before we do anything else, let's have our guests introduce themselves.
Perfect.
Tell us about themselves and how long they've been doing it and what they do. So let's start with Derek.
Derek Grimes, the Director of Safety at El Paso Electric Company. And we oversee not only the whole safety program across the organization, but also the apprenticeships, the trainings, professional drivers, all those different things.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Derek. Go ahead, Mike.
My name is Mike Starner. I'm with the National Electrical Contractors Association. I'm the Executive Director of Outside Line Safety, and I service what we call District 10, which is our outside line chapters, and help them be successful, in matters of safety and health. And NECA has an industry view, right? NECA wants to go out and look at what can we do to have a positive influence on the industry. We really believe that, raising the tide helps everybody do better. And the reality is we're sharing resources, right? The guy's working for you today, he's working for me tomorrow. We have the same customer base. We're trying to figure out how to be effective, in these multi-employer work sites. How can we share the same language Derek and I were talking about? So I'm just happy to be here and be able to coordinate and share best practices for keeping people safe.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Al.
Al Boer. I'm with MDR Construction. I'm the Regional Safety Manager.
Okay.
I've been in the industry for about 30 years now, and about probably 20 years so of those 30 in the safety and training realm.
Awesome. Thanks, Al. Jeremy?
I'm Jeremy G with Jackson EMC. Been with them for about 21 years. That's where I started. I'm the safety and training specialist now. I come off the line crew. Been in safety and training since November 2019. And my main responsibility in the safety and training department is our lineman training program.
Good. All right. Thanks, Jeremy. The podcast today, we're going to kind of stick with our conference theme here, which is training for competency. Mike kind of kicked it off this morning and kind of talked about compliance versus competency and kind of what that looks like. And so we have some of our partner companies here that are represented on the podcast with us today, and we're going to get some insight on maybe some things they're dealing with in striving to get to that competency level, right? It's a big gap we have in our industry, and I think like several of us have talked about this morning, without all of us, we're not getting there, right? So we can't get there alone.
Right.
We're not going to do it. We have good programs. Everybody has good programs, but nobody's getting there alone. We really need to work together and put all our brains together and get to this thing as a group. And I think the more we start to work as partners versus in our silos, like you talked about this morning, Mike, we'll start to move that needle. So, right, obviously the gap in the industry, right, is how do we get from that compliance level where we're just doing what we need to do to where we get to competent journeyman level individuals that this stuff is part of their DNA, right? They want to do it. They want to do things the right way. They want to do things the safest way. They want to use the procedures, right? So what are some things you guys are doing or seeing in the industry? I know, Mike, you get around all over the place, probably more than any of us at this point, but what are you guys seeing within your companies, and what are you seeing with all the companies you see that people are doing to try to move that needle and get to that competency level where our people, you know, I think we need to be where our folks are comfortable, right? We don't want to go too far because then we get into that complacency trap, right? So we don't want to get people where they're so on autopilot that it's actually moving the needle the wrong way, right? Or going back down towards the wrong way. So what are you guys saying? What are some things that you're seeing or doing out there to try to move that needle and get your people away from just doing what they have to do, right? And hey, I'm doing enough. I'm doing what they're telling me or what they're asking me to. I want to do this stuff and I want to promote this stuff.
Well, I think one way we got to have a discussion about is one size does not fit all.
Yep.
Right. So, I mean, during the trainers roundtable, you know, we had to raise the hands of, you know, are you with a investor owned, are you with a co-op, are you with a municipality, are you a contractor, are you union or non-union? Depends on your environment that you operate in and what your training needs are. But the end game should be, like the end result should be qualified, competent workers that understand the tasks that need to be performed. Now that's got to be cafeteria style at some level, depending on what you're doing. So, you know, I came up at the utility.
Yep.
And, you know, my training was very task specific based on the system configurations, the things I was going to be exposed to, the operations that I was going to be required to participate in. A journeyman lineman working for a contractor has to kind of have a pretty wide understanding of what all kinds of different distribution systems, transmission systems, the way things are configured and built. And what I see is we can get into a trap where, you know, guys doing transmission work yesterday and tomorrow maybe he's doing distribution work. What do we do as an organization to make sure that person's ready for that? So outside of apprenticeship, right? So apprenticeship, that gets you through the gate, and everybody has a different formula for how they approach that, right? And I can't address that specifically, but what I can say is after you're done with that apprenticeship, and now you're a journey level worker, a qualified line worker, what are the touch points to ensure competency throughout the life cycle?
And it's a missing part in our industry, right? I mean, I know where I came from, and I was an investor-owned utility. Once you're a journeyman, you're kind of blessed, right? Go forth and work, and short of your, I would call it, compliance training, right? Your bucket truck rescue, your that type of stuff, right? What other training do you get? And so, what are some of your other guys seeing, in that aspect of training beyond journeyman? Derek, do you guys do anything at El Paso?
You know,
do you have a specific?
We don't, but we're working on it. We're trying to build that. We're seeing a big transition kind of within the industry, right? You're seeing some great experience that's kind of moving out.
Yep.
You're seeing some new experience, lack of maybe, that's coming in. One of the things we're doing in El Paso, we just opened up a new training facility. Spent $12 million to build the facility. It's got a nice training yard. That's things that we hadn't had in the past.
Okay.
So the other thing is coming together in groups like this, right? Conferences like this, and coming together as an industry where we can really learn from each other. And that's really kind of coming from the safety aspect of things too. That's a big push that we're seeing in the industry, is learning from each other. We're clarifying some definitions so that we can all speak the same language. That's a big thing too. So I think you're seeing a lot of movements. Where I'm coming from, El Paso, we're really a smaller utility.
Okay.
And so kind of learning from some of the folks that are a little bit ahead of us in some things is just critically important in developing our employees and what they do.
Al, what are you getting from the contractor side of that? As far as the competencies and the training, and what are you doing? I mean, how are you bridging that gap?
It's a tough one to deal with, I guarantee. And every day the question comes back. What do we do? We have recently increased our training efforts. This industry is faced with a lot of generations are younger now, so the experience level is not like it used to be.
Yeah.
So we're trying to improve on our training in different areas. We picked up the T&D, putting together supervisory training for foremen, etc. And then, of course, utilizing these right here, getting input from more experienced people in the realm.
Cool.
But it's an evolving process for us.
Cool. How about you, Jeremy? What are you guys seeing?
So we actually just recently revamped our program. We put together a committee and went through, surveyed our linemen, and listened to what they said. We had one of the biggest things is on that committee, we had complete support and buy-in from our leadership team. So we didn't have, I know everybody doesn't get to do it, but we didn't have a lot of financial constraints in that. And that's been a big thing for us. We added the T&D stuff to ours. We added the ISPC leadership training once they make journeyman. We use training with our statewide for some of their leadership training beyond journeyman. OSHA training we use our statewide for. We have other companies that come in, NRECA doing leadership training for us. So after we finished that committee and we decided the direction we were going to take our training program, we actually formed another ongoing yearly committee that people roll on and off of, that's made up of the safety department and our linemen that are actually at our different offices. And it's our lineman training advisory committee. And what these guys are coming in and saying what they need to see, what they'd like to see for them and for their apprentices that are out there that they're training. And so far we've gotten total support from our leadership and been able to kind of, if the committee agrees that that's what we need for our linemen, we've been able to move forward with that.
Yeah, I think Jeremy's drilling down into something important here, is that it's a shared responsibility between management and labor. And one of the things that we're proud of is at the apprenticeship level, how our joint apprenticeship training committees can come together and really identify where do we need to address skills gaps, what should we have in our program, what should we add to become more sophisticated. Our training facilities, and this is probably pretty true across the board, are more advanced than they've ever been. So, the advancements of simulations and go out there and practice in a simulated environment, get some hot time in a training yard. Nothing replaces going out in the field and doing real work, but you can at least get the apprentice ready at the apprenticeship level. And the only way you're going to get all these new innovative ideas is if you come together as all the stakeholders agreeing to how do we move this organization forward. So that's a great point.
You talked about the getting that from the classroom to the real world hands-on work, right? And building or closing that gap, right? How do we get from what we're teaching people in the classroom to actually out there physically doing work? So is there anything you guys are using at your companies that is helping that effort? We talked a little bit about at the round table there at lunchtime about the need to, I guess you could say, get it right the first time, right? And teach our people exactly the right way to do this stuff so that they're practicing the right way. And when they get to the field, they get it or are doing it the right way, right? And then after we talk about that, I have a follow-up to that because there's I feel a real thorn that affects getting it done the right way. But first, is there some stuff you guys are using or doing that is helping you make that transition?
I go back to our training facility. We've got a beautiful building now. More importantly, we've got 7 acres behind us that has all representation of all of our equipment, that we can take an apprentice. It doesn't even have to be an apprentice. We can take an experienced journeyman, and they can go out and they can practice their techniques and stuff in an environment where they can fail, right? And you can really critique some things. You can, if there's new tools that come out, they can take that out into the training yard, and it's a safe environment for them to do that. So I think that's really important. Kind of saying to the point, right? That's management putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
And that's really important for the companies. And again, back as an industry, we can definitely learn from each other on how we build those opportunities up, so our tradesmen can get out there and really learn what they need to do.
Perfect. Jeremy, do you have the same type of, at Jackson, the same type of facilities or abilities to use facilities like that, or?
So we have 4 different locations that we have line crews out of, and at all 4 locations we have a training yard at those locations. And then our corporate training yard that's in Jefferson at the office that I'm at, we recently purchased a Timpson trainer and put that in so we can energize our yard with no fault current. So we've started doing that. We got guys down there, apprentices, that we're putting up in that pretty early on. I mean, they still have to follow all of our safety rules. We're not treating it like it doesn't have fault. Like we're trying to treat it, real world. And that was one of the things when we did our surveys of our linemen, they wanted more real world. So we're bringing guys in when they're apprentice, when they're we have a step in there that we have them as linemen before they make journeymen, and we're bringing them in early now at that level and handing them a clipboard and having those guys run a crew and change out poles and be over other guys that are 6 months, year, 18 months. And we're bringing guys in from different offices. So it's not even guys a lot of times that they're familiar with, to try to let them. One thing I've seen that's done with them is let them realize how much is on a crew leader, how much a crew leader is responsible for, because they don't really see that, and we're getting them to see that early. And I think it's making some of them realize how important their piece of the pie is, to take some of that burden off of that crew leader and maybe start learning their responsibilities a little better.
Perfect.
But we're using that. And trainers, we're building a new building starting in May, where safety and training is going to have their own lab and everything in there. We're going to put simulators in there. So we're trying to, like I said, our leadership has been backing us with being able to put the latest and greatest if we can. But that, I still don't know how that's going to go. But that's some of the stuff that we're doing.
Okay.
Jeremy made a good point. When you're putting together these facilities and these trainings and things like that, you do have to treat it like a real world.
Yeah.
So when our guys go out, they're expected to have all their PPE, all their tools. They're expected to do a tailboard or tailgate, whatever you call it, exactly like they would on the job. That's a very, very important point.
And that's very important to be training the way you're going to be working.
Absolutely.
And we can touch on that in a minute. I saved you for last, Al, for one reason, because you're a contractor, right? And so you have a lot of struggles that some of these other guys don't when it comes to funding and facilities. And what are some things you guys as a contractor are doing when you don't necessarily have the funds to just say, hey, let's go build our own training facility at our shop, right? Like, so what do you guys do to make that connection and get the guys the hands-on they need before they really get in the field and start going to town working?
Yeah, that definitely is a challenge. This company was always fairly small.
Okay.
The last couple of years, we have made a tremendous growth. So we're still kind of struggling with that aspect of everything too. But we have within the past year or so developed our training facility at the main office, and then we have a satellite training yard in Northwest Arkansas.
Okay.
So we're expanding in the realms now, and have been able to do the lineman development program, get our guys out there learning this stuff in that environment. So then we try to continue following up in the field through observations. Again, we're trying to develop our foremen into being those supervisors that they need to be. That sometimes they feel like that's not part of their job. They just sit in a truck and say, do this, do that. But there is a lot more to it. So we're trying to work really hard in that direction, getting them to understand that they are supervisors, and basically they are their own little company, so to speak. So if they look at it like that and continue teaching everything they know, and we, of course, being as young as they are now, it still takes a little work with them, but we've got a big plan, so hopefully we can pull it together.
And being spread out all over God's half acre, I mean, that is something that's a unique challenge that any contractor that's getting big and got more than 4 crews is going to face. I mean, you guys are all over from what, Mississippi, Arkansas?
Yeah, we've got one crew in Nevada still. Colorado, we got a crew on a project, and then we're from Oklahoma, Missouri, all the way across, even into Florida.
So, and
Perfect.
maintaining consistency
Yes, challenge.
in your training, and it's not just a consistent training message, it's a consistent training time.
Yep.
It's just like kids, our kids when they were growing up, they ate at 6, they bathed at 7, they were in bed at 8, and it was just like that whole time. And that was their mama. It wasn't me doing that, that's for sure. But now they understand the I guess the value of that consistency, because then they know that, okay, this is going to be at this time, this is going to be at this time. So maintaining that consistency for you guys, for El Paso and Jackson, you're seeing you guys are more able to have that consistency. But how do you maintain that, Al, with everybody spread so thin and all over the place?
It's all I can say is it's not very consistent at the moment. All we can do is do the best we can, chasing it without being able to just rope it into one location. It's an everyday challenge, and we haven't figured it out yet. But
Are you seeing a difference in the type of leader that you're able to grow from the younger guys to the old guys that are set in their ways? Are they able to adapt a little more easily? And can you take that young journeyman with minimal training, turn them into the leader that you want them to be?
there are some that's very easy to do. Again, you look at the human aspect of it, different personality types, things of that nature. It is possible. It just takes a little longer to do, a little more effort, and a little more commitment.
Cool. And so I come to you last, Mike. So what are you, as you're going around visiting, and I'm sure visiting all different kinds of contractors and size contractors, and what are some of the struggles or successes that you're seeing out there without, because no different than Al in the contracting world, I'd say probably the majority of the people you're meeting with are contractors, and so have the same struggles, right? They don't have the financial backing of a utility or a co-op or something of that nature. So what are there things you're seeing out there that are hurting or helping?
Well, first I can say that our contractor members have access to our JTCs, which is a great asset. And I could brag on our JTCs all day long, but that only gets you so far. You got to get that out in the field, try and get a hold down, encountering rock, starts to rain, customers hollering at me, experience. That's what you need. And one thing that maybe utilities have the advantage over the contractor is the ability to pull work out of the plan, assign some time that work that's not time sensitive. There's not a lot of customer pressure. Mm-hmm. The scope is pretty easily managed by folks who are training, and they can send, for lack of other terms, a training crew out to do this work in a controlled manner, but it's out in the real world. Mm-hmm. For a contractor, these folks that we send out have to be a productive crew. So how work is bid, how the utilities, how welcoming the utilities are to that process to train, to invest. The industry is very different than it used to be with the use of contractors. Contractors used to get brought in for complex, out-of-scope work that's just going to bog down internal resources. Contractors are now doing operations and maintenance work. They're doing capital project work, as they've always done. And so, I guess if I was going to be an advocate for the contracting industry, which I am, I would say the utilities out there, as you put work out for bid, and you're measuring apples to apples, and you see a high bid, think about having a conversation with that contractor to understand what's included in that, right? So we talked earlier today about compliance as the baseline. Everything you do above that, and if you think about safety and training, that's all discretionary at some level, right? There's minimum things that you have to do. There's things that you want to do. And if I had all the world, the things that I would do, right? So that's the spectrum of opportunity there. It all costs money, right? And so have a conversation with your contractor and say, what does your safety program look like? What discretionary things are you doing to maintain an incident-free life cycle on my projects? And how can we partner with you where it's appropriate to do that so that we're investing in the workforce as an industry? Poor work practices, unsafe behaviors, risk and drift and all that stuff, it's systemic once it gets out there, right? And the journeyman lineman may be working for a non-union contractor one day and then gets involved with the union contractor the next, or they're working for the utility and decide, hey, I'm going to go try the contractors. We are sharing these folks, right? So, Derek and I were just talking a little bit ago about the more you can have a common understanding and language, some of these more sophisticated approaches to safety management, and training is the same way, right? Understanding that we all have a stake in how well these individuals perform in the field, and how can we, where it's appropriate, contribute to their success. And so, have that relationship with your contractors during where you're trying to pre-qualify your contractors, or you have a big bid package coming up, or you need help with something. Sit down at the table and look each other in the eyes and say, how can we get this together? That's what I would say.
And that's a perfect segue into our sponsor. T&D Power Skills is sponsoring the podcast today. And the reason I say it's a perfect segue is consistency across the board. Now, you guys are all T&D Power Skills users, but how cool is it to have that consistency from the contractor to the employer to the client going, okay, this is exactly what we use. You use the same thing. It's all meshing right there. Here's all our FPRs. We're going, this is what our guys know. Here's a packet of everything they know. I mean, so consistency across the board is one thing that T&D Power Skills has been trying and striving to bring to the table of the industry. 78-unit course curriculum designed from Apprentice 1 to Journeyman Lineman, touching on all adult learning principles. And it is a true comprehensive training program. So if you want to know more, tdpowerskills.com. They're the sponsor of ISPC Tailboard Talks. Control your delivery, control your message, and control your cost. T&D Power Skills.
Thanks, Jerry. So we just kind of talked about, getting from that classroom to the competency. What issues are you guys seeing out there in the training consistency, right? Because, some of you may have the ability to have one or two trainers that are doing everything, right? Al, you talked about it's all over the place with you guys, right? You could have supervisors doing some of your training, right? That aren't really trainers. They're just, hey, you're a supervisor. It's part of your job to train your people, right? And I get it. Even the big investor-owned utility that I used to work for, a lot of the training after journeyman, right, was done or given by the supervisors to their own crews. So, I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 48, 49 supervisors between line crews and electrical crews. Well, potentially you're getting 49 different deliverables of the same training, right? So how do we stay consistent in the training and the messages that we're delivering to our people? What are you guys doing? What are your companies doing out there? And then we'll come to you, Mike, kind of as the eyes of the overall industry. But what do you guys do to try to close that gap so that your frontline workers are getting the quality of training they need to get?
Well, it's really having the conversations with the employees. We built great partnerships. Our linemen are part of the IBEW.
Yeah.
So building a relationship with them, understanding what their needs are, really getting their input, that's a big piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of same thing with the supervisors, right? We want to hear from them. We have joint committees. We have joint training committees. I think just different things like that. And then getting in the field and understanding, right, watching these folks do their work, and maybe even from a distance, so to speak, see where they're struggling, see where those gaps are, and then kind of help with that. Another thing is the planning. I gave a presentation today about starting with the foundations, and that's really, there are a lot of tools out there that can help guide you through that, so that you can have a good consistency as you move from one project or one training to the next. And I think those are some things that we do anyway. And the same thing across the industry too, having the conversations with some of these folks and understanding where the struggles are. Maybe we haven't seen it yet. Maybe they have seen it, right? And then exchanging the ideas and really getting the idea exchange, right? Understanding, what are you doing? How can we absorb that and pull that into our environment? That's critically important. Yeah.
Great, good. How about you, Jeremy? Anything you guys are seeing or doing that is helping to drive that consistent training deliverable?
So for us, we kind of see at two of our offices, we are journeyman heavy. So we have plenty of journeymen, and we've been hit with promotions and retirements and things like that. So two of our offices is kind of going as it always has because of that. But two offices, we're very apprentice and lineman heavy, and we have limited guys that are on the crew. As far as the training in the yard, that stays pretty consistent because we're involved in a lot of that. But on the crew, I think for those two offices, when you talk to some of those foremen that are there, that on the crew stuff, and I know not everybody has the ability to do it, but kind of controlling what type of work they're doing, it's a slower process at those offices because of the youth, and a lot of stuff is, we're getting a lot more help with contractors and things like that, because we have been, like I said, we got 123 linemen and 60 of them's in the training program. So, and a lot of those journeymen are at two different offices.
Gotcha.
So that's a problem that we are kind of working through right now.
Yeah.
And for Al, something I was going to mention earlier, I don't know if you thought about this or tried this, and it's something that we're doing. I can't take credit for it. One of our superintendent that's over our contractors, as far as you having a place to train your guys, a yard, because you're so spread out. Our contractor that's our superintendent over our contractors, he came to me and asked if the contractors that work for us could use our training yard. He worked up a contract to sign, and we have Pike and some other guys come in and do. We don't facilitate any training, but they come in and use our training yard for their hurt man rescue. Right. We've had some of our tree cutting guys come in and give tree cutting classes to their guys on our yard. So, some companies are open to do that, and they worked up. I wasn't a part of it. I just said yeah, and they worked up a contract on the days that they're going to do it. Chad, the superintendent, will let me know. I set our dummies out there and tell them, hey, you can use these poles right here. Have at it. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that is awesome.
It's exactly the kind of community of practice that we need to establish, right? And our JETCs will do the same thing with utilities. Utilities want to get some training done. We have a training yard, depending on the situation. Just coming together and putting some of these. Sometimes we want to put these barriers in between us to kind of isolate us from risk, like. I better not, I don't want co-employment issues. I don't want to give work direction, all that kind of stuff. And I think, look, you certainly have to pay attention to that. But man, how cool is it when we can figure out how to do it successfully and come together? Because you got customer and the contractor working together to solve problems. That transfers onto the job site, as issues arise. You say, hey, look, we got a history of solving problems together. Let's do it here too.
Yeah, and it breeds good communication, and communication breeds a good working environment.
Yeah.
So another question on the same vein. We've all been talking about young guys coming in, becoming supervisors. What I have seen, and I haven't been in this industry as long as you guys have, but what I've seen is that the younger generation is demanding training, and they're demanding that consistency, and they're demanding that. Not demanding, they're expecting to be trained more so than guys my age. We got in the workforce and just you did what you did, and like I said, I'm not a lineman, but in any workforce now, continuing education is used and used effectively across the board in all industries, in all aspects. Are we seeing that here with the younger guys coming in?
Yeah.
How are you making it happen for them?
And another point to that is the way that they learn is different too, right? And you guys are having to make adjustments in T&D Power Schools for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, the delivery of training, how accessible is the training? We have the ability nowadays to, how often are we sitting waiting for a storm to develop, or, at the show up before work begins, and we have an opportunity to do something online based, and also think micro learning. This idea that give folks these small digestible chunks. That's what the younger folks want to see. YouTube based, themed oriented kind of training. Certainly doesn't meet competency based, but at least sets the table for when you have that audience where you can really apply some of that targeted training. They have the baseline to draw from, right? So they're familiar. So just working into your game plan, your training plan, all the different ways that you can touch your user, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's classroom, controlled environment out in the field like we talked about, or just-in-time training. Maybe it's a new tool or piece of equipment that's been put on a system that you can develop some package and get it out to them quickly. The young folks, they understand technology and how available it is, right? So if you don't have a program that information is available, it's already going to put them in a mode where they're like, okay, is this really world class?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think too, you see a I don't know if you call it a trend at this point, but if those younger generations are not getting that training and advancement opportunities, they're gone.
Yeah.
So you could potentially, right? Okay, you come in, you put them through your apprenticeship program, invest in 3 or 4 years of this individual, and then to Jerry's point, if you stop and say, okay, now you're on your own, they're gone. They're not going to stick around. They're going to go somewhere that a company is going to give them what they expect.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So it's
And then you're losing a valuable asset because
right.
it's somebody that wants to be trained, that wants to be taught and learn more.
yeah.
Pretty much covers it.
I think it pretty much covers it. Derek, Mike, Al, Jeremy, appreciate you sitting in with us, giving us your insight. Appreciate everything you guys do for the industry, and the help that you have given us over the years. Look forward to continuing. And again, you and I, Mike, were talking, and we need to continue this partnership effort throughout the industry. I don't care if you're IBEW. I don't care if you're not EBW. The fact that, well, you're not union, so I'm not going to listen to what you say, right? Well, hey, I'm not union now, but I was. When I was in tools, I was an IBEW electrician, right? And then when I went into management, our management was not, right? And now I'm not, obviously. But, every single person, union or not.
And we see that divide beyond just that, right? I mean, operations and safety, transmission and distribution, substation, and the rest of the guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It just depends. If you allow a culture to develop where these walls get established, that's exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so our mission, right? All of us at this table, I'm sure, shares this mission, is to tear down those walls, figure out where it's appropriate to work together.
Yeah.
With the ultimate goal of improving the industry. I mean, our industry is getting better, but it's not where it needs to be.
Agreed.
And, we kind of hit a stalemate with the fatality rates that we're seeing, and the only way we're going to crack that nut is by putting our heads together.
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't have said it better.
I am my brother. I am my brother's keeper.
Yeah.
That's a big slogan in the industry. I'm my brother's keeper.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Any parting comments anybody wants to add? Anything you want to throw in there? Again, appreciate all you guys' insight. Jerry, you want to kind of send her home with a
Today's podcast
sponsor.
has been brought to you by T&D Power Skills, 78-unit course curriculum. Guys, it is backed by 191 lineman competencies. If you haven't seen it, I highly encourage you to get in touch with me. tdpowerskills.com. Look for Jerry on the website, and he'll call you back.
All right. Thanks, guys. That's a wrap from the Trainer Show, and we will see you next time on the ISPC Tailboard Talks podcast.
The views and opinions shared in this podcast are the personal viewpoints of the participants and may not necessarily reflect the stance of ISPC and its staff. It is highly advised to consult your company management before implementing any actions or policy changes.